Horrible if my head disappeared.
Okay, so it's now 6:30. Councillors, we are live on YouTube this evening. This is the Human Resources Committee of Bletchley and Fanny Stratford Town Council. If I could just start by asking all of the councillors to introduce themselves to members of the public that might be watching. I'm Ethan Kelly-Wilson and I am chair of the HR Resources Committee. Sam.
Oh, sorry. I'm Samantha Brown. I'm a member of the Committee for Human Resources and the Town Council for the Lakes.
Angela.
Angela Kennedy and a member of this committee.
Mike.
Mike McDonald. I'm a councillor for Eaton South on the Lakes and I'm a member of this HR committee.
Ed.
I'm Councillor Ed Hume and I'm a member of this committee.
Thank you all very much. Okay, do we, Delia, as our clerk, do we have any apologies for absence this evening?
No, we don't. We don't have any apologies.
All right, and on to this next item on the agenda, members' declarations of interest in matters on the agenda. Does anybody have any pecuniary interest or interest they need to disclose?
I may do it at a later date, Ethan. It all depends how the conversations go.
Okay, we'll take that under advisement over time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And on to item 3 of the agenda, which is minutes of the next meeting, or of the last meeting, sorry. So there are minutes of the last meeting held on the 9th of June. Page 1. Page 2, page 3, and page 4. Okay, are members happy that I approve the minutes as being an accurate record?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and then on to minutes of previous HR subcommittee meeting and recommendations within that. It's agenda item 4. Okay, page 1. Okay, under HRS 20/6, there is a resolution to recommend to the HR committee that the following issues be addressed. Are those items on the agenda, Delia, today?
Yes, they're dealt with in agenda item 11.
Okay, so we will deal with those recommendations under a separate agenda item. Are members therefore happy for me to confirm that these minutes are an accurate record of the meeting?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Don't these get done at the committee of the subcommittee? They
Yes,
get approved there, don't
that's
they?
when they're approved, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public speaking. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak publicly tonight?
No, nobody's made contact and asked to make representations.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 6, new pay scales for 2020/21 agreed by the NJC and implemented with effect from the 1st of April 2020 in accordance with staff contracts. I do believe that there is a paper from NAUC there for people to read. Is there anything you wanted to say, Delia?
Just to say that obviously the salary scales are there for you to see. In accordance with the existing staff contracts, those scales have been implemented and the revised pay scales were backdated to the 1st of April. The internal auditor has been in to do his interim visit, and one of the items that he checked was that pay scale had been correctly implemented in line with the contracts, and that is made reference to in the internal audit report, which will be going to the Finance Committee next week. So as far as I'm concerned, we've done everything we need to do with regard to the pay scales.
Lovely, thank you very much. So for noting, everybody happy with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. And next item on the agenda is a report on health and safety at work. I think it's a verbal update.
Yes, Chairman, I was going to ask if this matter could be deferred to the next meeting. We are actually due to have a further HR meeting on the 30th of November, which is very close in time, but I do think it's important that we have this meeting, and I would ask if that item could be deferred to them, because by then we will have had the health and safety action plan at least on Newton Lees, if not on any of the other
Okay, so
buildings.
we'll defer that item to the next meeting. Okay, item 8, review of current contracts and employment handbook.
Yes, this you'll remember we've talked about this earlier this year, that there have been changes in legislation which have resulted in a need to update our contracts, also our employee handbook. And so our existing contracts were referred to Ellis Whittam for them to comment on, and they have suggested some amendments to each of our 3 contracts. So we have a standard contract, which is what a regular employee will have. We have a fixed term contract for when we take on someone on a fixed term, and we have a 0 hours contract, which has very rarely been used, but has been used on occasion when we've wanted to employ a temp direct without being quite sure about what hours we were going to need. So those are the 3 contracts that we regularly use. I don't know if you'd like to go through them one by one, Chairman.
Should we start by going through the first item, which is the regular contract employment? And that is actually on item 8 itself, rather than an additional document.
Yeah. So I think Ellis Whittam have the amendments are in red on the document, and there's a decision to be made about which wording is preferred on the item 14, which is training.
This is for all new employees, isn't it?
This is for all new employees, yes. So I understand it's part of the new legislation that we have to make a statement about training.
Mhm.
Well, I definitely wouldn't be recommending that we make the second statement, which suggests that employees should be doing it at their own expense.
No.
Okay, does anyone want to say anything about this clause? Ed, was that a proposal?
I think the third clause is my preferred one. So can I propose that we go with that one? Just to start.
Delia, could you just please advise whether this is an ipsative clause, or is it we're choosing one of the 3?
I think they've offered us 4, haven't they? Actually, they've offered us 4. I think we could potentially amalgamate aspects of more than one if that was what the committee was minded to do. I probably need to check it with them that they were happy, but I think the issue is that it's specified that the expectations in terms of training is specified.
Chair, I'm just reading it, and so there's an and/or in there.
Yes.
So so that's why I'm just thinking if the and or war's there, I would probably put the first one and the third one together. So that and the third one, and remove the second and the last one, because I don't necessarily think.
Can I just ask the 14 clause 1 or paragraph 1, the last sentence, would we ever do that, Delia?
We haven't done it during the time I've been with this organisation. I have. I don't. I mean, it would. will know more about this than me. I think it is a requirement that people should attend training, and if they persistently refuse to attend training, that is indeed an issue, isn't it?
So I think my view is there are other implied terms that you could possibly be used for that, and I mean personally, I think that people should attend training because they should attend it, not because they're under threat of action. And for me, there is an implied term of of following reasonable management instructions. Attending training is a reasonable management instruction.
Yeah.
And I think I would rather we were contractually silent but relied on the implied term within a contract of an employee to follow reasonable management instructions. Because otherwise I think it's like training becomes negative, doesn't it?
Yes, and that's very unfortunate, isn't it, if that happens?
Yeah. Any other comments? So do we agree for clause 1 and 3, other than the last sentence which I've highlighted in that
the final sentence of clause 1?
Yeah. Okay, on to the next item. So I think that was all of the points in the first contract. So going on to the fixed term contract, and I believe it's actually the same.
I think it's pretty much the same,
Yeah, I would want to standardise that for.
Yeah. So as per the first agreement.
Yep.
Going on to the 0 hours contract. So there's an item about other paid leave and other benefits.
Yeah.
Did you want to say anything about those?
I mean, this is a contract that we've only used once in the last 5 years, and we very rarely use a 0 hours contract. But it's obviously a matter for you to decide. There's you can see which of the clauses are being are not in brackets, which is what Ellis Whittam is saying we need to have there. It's a matter for you to decide on the other matter or on the others.
Any comments on this agreement?
So, with regard to the training, same as the previous ones.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair comment. With regards to, and I'm not an expert on paid leave, so clearly someone with a 0 hour contract is entitled to leave, but if their hours vary or if they're set hours, how does that quite work? Because if we employ someone for 15 hours for 10 weeks of the year and then we employ them for 5 hours, how is paid leave calculated and worked out is kind of, so I'm not quite sure on that, and would help to have some advice.
Can I just ask the clerk whether the benefits of this agreement are the same as the 2 contracts we've previously discussed, or are they different?
My understanding is that they're the same, that their intention was to make them the same.
Because I just had a quick look at the first one, and it mentions around leave and benefits, it talks about the green book, and I can't see the green book being here. And I didn't know if it was in the green book that it talks about in other benefits, after success in clause 13, after successful completion of your probationary period, you may be provided with the following benefits. Is it green book to offer after a probationary period, or is it from day one?
It's from day one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, all benefits are available. So all benefits are available in the green book from day one, as I understand it.
Is this an agreement that we actually need to have? Because
I was just thinking that it might be
Yeah.
that we just don't need to go there with this one
Yeah.
and make decisions about it until such occasions as we might need to use one.
I know that there's been a lot of changes around benefits and the rights of casuals recently, and I know that in my day job we now do not employ casuals direct as a result of this legislation, and I think it's become very common that if you want to offer if you don't have a fixed need for hours or whatever, we just simply use agency staff for that, because they've got all the systems in place to monitor all of these things that need monitoring, and also it doesn't create a two-tier workforce within our own organisation. So I think if the small saving on an hourly rate that we might make, actually we probably find that we're more compliant with the legislation than we would not. So I mean that would be my proposal, that we don't sign off a 0 hours contract and we use agency staff if we need to in the future.
I think that the other option is that if we decided that we wanted to use a 0 hour, we had a circumstance in which a 0 hours contract was appropriate, we could get an up-to-date model contract at that time, rather than adopting this model contract, which as you say has got some complexities to it, and I think that would be more sensible. And I think on the last occasion when we did use a 0 hours contract, and the committee did express concern about using 0 hours contracts because they weren't thought to be beneficial for employees, and we only did it for a specific reason on a one-off occasion.
Members, do you have any comments?
No.
I think from what you've said and from where the discussion has gone, that we should not look at this one and consider it at an appropriate time if and when needed.
If and when.
Okay, so is that agreed by all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and then on to the employee handbook. Was there anything you wanted to highlight, Delia?
Yes, the employee handbook does have some, I've highlighted the new elements in the employee handbook.
So I think there's an item on page 63 going forwards about parental bereavement pay.
It's parental bereavement, and then it's the bullying and harassment policy.
I'm not going to vote on this one. I'll abstain and declare an interest because it's a staff handbook.
Okay, and then did you say there was another item, Delia?
Yes, it's bullying and harassment right at the end. They've suggested different wording to the right at the end, section 7 at the end.
Yeah.
Clark, just a procedural question. What's our quorum number for this committee?
Well, you've only got one person missing, so you've got a quorum.
Yeah, I thought that was the case.
Yeah.
I just couldn't remember whether it was 3 or 4.
No.
Okay.
You've got 5. So
everybody happy with those proposed changes at parental bereavement leave and bullying and harassment in the updated staff handbook? Okay, all in favour?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. So that's carried, and it's noted that Angela did not vote.
there's one issue I did just want to mention on this. It's not actually directly involved with the approval of the staff handbook, but the employee handbook is not very specific about. It talks about vehicles, doesn't say anything. It talks about reckless driving, but it doesn't say anything about damage to vehicles. Now, over the last couple of years, there have been instances of minor damage to council-owned vehicles. And I wonder if this is something that you think we ought to look at including in the employee handbook, or whether you think it's dealt with, as in the case of failure to attend training by other aspects of the employment situation.
Would it help? I've got a driver policy that I can send you and we could talk about it at another point.
I think that would be really helpful, because it's just something that's just come up recently. Something has happened that's reminded me that that's something that's not covered in the handbook, and yes, perhaps a separate policy would be the best way to deal with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
I'll bring that to a future committee.
Lovely. Okay, next item on the agenda, approval of new appraisal scheme. Is this something you wanted to talk to, Clark?
Yes, briefly. The annual appraisals are due to start fairly soon. We tried to get them done in January, ready for the new financial year. We talked in the past about changing the appraisal scheme, and what's been changed, the documents are almost identical, but what's been changed is that we've suggested that in the previous pack, the appraisee completed a lot of notes to discuss during the appraisal interview with the appraisor, and those notes were never recorded. They weren't part of the interview. Then the interview was written up by the appraiser for the appraisee to sign. We would like to shift the scheme so that it's focused more on self-appraisal, so that the first part of the process, whereby the employee completes the appraisal form itself themselves, that becomes part of the written process, and if there are differences of opinion, that's then recorded. There are differences of opinion with the manager, that's then recorded. But it's just about putting the onus more onto the individual employee to be assessing their own performance, rather than it being a purely in terms of the documentation. I hope that the process was always involving, two parties having a discussion, but I feel that the paperwork didn't really reflect that kind of that way of proceeding, and so we want to just change the paperwork to reflect that, so that it's more of a self-appraisal that is then endorsed by the manager, rather than an appraisal that is informed by some notes that the employee has taken.
I think that's a good idea, because it becomes more of a two-way communication. It encourages it more. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the best way forward. It's always good to appraise yourself and to have a good discussion, and if it's noted in this paper trail, then that's good. My one concern is that this may be a new thing for some of our employees, and it may be something that some employees may need more support with, and so just making sure that is available, and so they have an understanding of maybe how to write and appraise their self-appraisal, and also just make sure they've got the time to do that during working hours.
Yes, we always used to allow time during working hours for people to complete their notes, and what we can do is have an induction session when we sort of go through the changes to the system and how it will work with the team together, and then allow people time to do the self-appraisal.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think what Ed said is spot on. I think we need to make sure that everyone doesn't nobody loses out from the change and they get a better understanding in the training, and that's good.
I also think it's a good thing. I think that one of the things that I always try to say is that employees are responsible for owning their own performance, and actually if they are responsible for completing the documentation before the appraisal, you know, that is owning their own performance. And so I think it's a really good move to make. Everybody in favour? Good, thank you. Okay, I think that completes all of the items that I have for the non-confidential part of the meeting. There are 2 other items that are for discussion by the committee this evening, but I believe on the basis of the papers that I need to move a resolution to exclude the press and public from the meeting. Are all of the other members happy to do so?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen watching on YouTube this evening. This is the end of the public part of the meeting. Thank you.
Bear with me, Chairman, while I stop the recording and stop the